Welcome back to the Michigan Business Beat, brought to you on the Michigan Business Network. Chris Holman here, and we are broadcasting from our studios at the Capital Region International Airport, right by TSA. So if you try to sneak on with something weird, we're going to know. We've got a guest on right now from the east side of the state, Matt Elliott, Michigan State President and Region Executive for Bank of America, Michigan. And Matt, it's always good to spend time with you. I honestly, I don't think we've talked since last May, somewhere in there, up at the policy conference. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. We had a fantastic conference, Chris, and frankly, the theme that we use, the power of and, continues to resonate, which is exactly what we were hoping for, and we're really fired up about the conference we're going to have coming up this year.
Well, I haven't been to a bad one, and we've been going like 14 years, so it's they got a pretty good streak going there. But you were exceptional in your leadership there, and we all thank you for that. So let's talk about 23 while we've got a minute here. What were the takeaways? What were the particular highs and lows of 23 for you guys?
Well, I think if you look at the economy, you have to come up with the word resilience. You know, we started off the year with uncertain economic conditions. We had very high inflation, and we didn't see a trend, a moderation really much in that trend. And then we had a couple of banks go sideways that led to some, and those were very idiosyncratic, but at the time, people weren't sure if that was a bigger systemic issue. And then as the year went along, you know, the economy and really just stabilized. So inflation came down 3.4% on the CPI at the end of the year. You know, the banking sector really moderated and stabilized, which frankly, as a banker, we expected. But, you know, proof is always in the pudding. So we're in a better shape at the end of the year in a lot of ways than we started off in the beginning. And here in the state of Michigan, you know, sort of no different. We had to walk through collectively the UAW strike, which has done a lot to reset wages in the state. So now all business owners have to reset there. Also, we were the beneficiary, Chris, of a lot of IRA projects and other infrastructure projects. There were 120,000 new jobs announced since the passage of the IRA. The state with the second most number of those jobs is Michigan. And so there's a good outlook there to, you know, convert all those announcements into actual employment and actual products. And that's what 24 is going to play a part in.
You know, it's kind of interesting because you said something there that's really pertinent. And at a time when inflation appeared to be a little out of control, we were talking about recession. Two banks really, and I don't want to see poorly managed, but they certainly made some mistakes, made people worry that, oh boy, this is the beginning of the dominoes, and that wasn't the fact at all.
Not at all. And those were issues related to the management of those two organizations, and they were not a statement on the sector. And that's why you saw the sector stabilize and keep moving forward and keep doing our job, frankly, which is to help move the economy forward. You know, that's our job, and we're really glad to see that. And I think now we're at a spot where the Fed sees inflation beginning to moderate. Everybody believes, the market believes, that their tightening cycle has stopped and is now excited about the idea of rates coming down, and our own economists see that as we look into 2024.
Let's talk about 2024. How are you feeling about it, and what do you see happening with inflation?
Yeah, our house call is that we see inflation continuing to moderate. Growth's going to be relatively slow, kind of where we were before the pandemic. But overall, we see a soft landing. But we see rate cuts beginning sometime maybe late second quarter into the third quarter, but over 100 basis points of rate cuts in 2024, really on the back or on the strength of an improving inflation picture and a fairly stable economy. So we're excited about that. And we think that's what's being reflected in the equity markets, but certainly we're beginning to see that with our client base as well.
Well, Matt, it's kind of interesting. That could bode well for investors in 2024. Do you see that?
Well, you know, a lot of our equity strategists do feel like there's a good backdrop. You know, fund manager sentiment is improving. We think that earnings are likely to beat GDP growth, which is always a key thing. Lower inflation is obviously a good thing because that has supportive fiscal policy. But listen, there are no risks to the outlook. You know, you've got geopolitical risk, you've got election risk. Over 60% of the world's GDP will elect a new leader in 2024, believe it or not. And of course, there's always the risks of that we're going to have to deal with of increasingly volatile climate, as well as new technologies like AI. So there's lots of things that could that we're going to have to probably manage through with volatility, but overall there's a positive outlook for 2024.
It's interesting. There's some of the pundits out there, and of course the economists still suggest there might be a recession. I have to tell you, 18 months ago on this show, I said there will be no recession because I thought the Fed did a pretty good job of, as hard as it is to get in a thumb screw, sometimes it works out. How do you feel about that?
Well, our economists, who are generally fairly, I would say, fairly pessimistic at times, I think all economists are actually fairly optimistic here, that we believe that we are going to land the economy softly without having to go into recession. Growth will be modest, for sure, over the next quarter or two, but on the other hand, not be a technical marker of a recession, but more importantly, see the beginnings of some really nice opportunity for the United States economy. We've got reshoring. We have comparatively stable inflationary picture compared to the rest of the world. And we continue to create value, and we have a dynamic economy. So those are all things, especially for Michigan, that bode well for us.
There you heard it. Matt Elliott, Michigan State President and Region Executive with Bank of America, Michigan. Matt, it's always good to see you. Thanks for spending time with us, my friend, and let's all go out and have a prosperous 24, eh?
Sounds great, Chris. Thank you.
You've been watching the Michigan Business Beat on the Michigan Business Network. I'm Chris Holman.